You never expect to get fired by your own father. Not like that. Not in a boardroom, under the cold glare of fluorescent lights, with 2 burly security guards standing by like you're some kind of criminal. But there I was, Sarah Miller, 40, years old, CEO in training, or so I thought, being physically escorted out of Miller Enterprises by men twice my size. It started like any other Monday morning. I woke up to the usual nagging feeling that I was just one bad decision away from ruin. Except this time, I was right. I had spent years working my ass off for this family business. Since I was a kid, I was told it would be mine someday. Dad even let me handle the new product launch last quarter. I crushed it. Sales went through the roof. But apparently that wasn't good enough. The meeting was called on a whim. No warning. No, let's discuss your future. Just a curt text. From Dad. Come to my office at 10. The coldness of those 2 words still chills me. When I walked in, the air was thick with tension. Dad sat behind his massive mahogany desk, the same desk that once seemed so powerful and inviting, now just a throne for a man who'd decided to erase me from his world. His eyes, usually warm with fatherly pride, were cold, calculating. Sarah, he said, voice clipped, we need to talk about your role here. I smiled, thinking maybe he wanted to discuss a promotion or a raise. How naive. You're fired, he said flatly, effective immediately. Then he called security. Security, like I was some disgraced thief caught stealing company secrets. I stood there, stunned, feeling my heart crash into pieces inside my chest. Dad, what are you doing? This is insane, I said, voice cracking but steady. He didn't flinch. The board agreed. You're toxic to the company's image. Toxic. Me. His daughter. Before I could say anything else, 2 giant men grabbed me by the arms. I felt the sting of humiliation as they pulled me up. No one in that room looked shocked. Not one person blinked. It was as if they'd all been waiting for this moment, like a show they'd rehearsed for months. I was dragged through the marble halls of the building I'd called home. The same place where I had cried late nights over failed deals, celebrated hard-won victories, and dreamed about leading the company into the future. Now, I was nothing more than an unwanted visitor being tossed out. Out the front doors they went. The cold spring air hit me like a slap. People passing by stared, some whispering, some smirking. I was the spectacle, the fallen princess dethroned, in front of an entire city. As I sat on the curb, heart pounding, I tried to make sense of it. Why? Why now? What had I done besides work harder than anyone else? I called my best friend Lisa. You won't believe what just happened, I said, voice shaky but laced with bitter humor. She gasped. They actually kicked you out. Like trash. And there it was, the bitter truth. The family empire wasn't a legacy to be passed on. It was a fortress Dad was tightening around himself. And I was the enemy. But you know what? This story isn't over. Not by a long shot. If anything, getting thrown out like garbage lit a fire inside me. A fire that's been burning ever since. So yeah, that was the day I lost my job, my dignity, and apparently, my father's love. But trust me, the day I destroyed his empire is coming, and I can't wait to tell you how it happened. After I was shoved out of Miller Enterprises like yesterday's trash, I could have curled up and cried myself into oblivion. But that's not me. You see, I'm Sarah Miller, the daughter of a titan who thought kicking me to the curb was the final word. Spoiler alert, it's not. The first 48 hours were a blur of angry phone calls, silent tears, and dark thoughts. My phone buzzed nonstop. Board members, ex-employees, even some clients reached out. Not with condolences, but with hushed whispers and nervous glances. Everyone was waiting to see if the prodigal daughter would crumble or fight back. I decided to fight. I started by digging. And I don't mean casual snooping over coffee. I mean a deep dive into the financials, the contracts, the shady deals no one wanted to talk about. Dad's empire was a gleaming fortress on the outside, but inside, rotten to the core. There were off-the-books payments, conflicts of interest, and skeletons rattling louder than the grand piano in the lobby. My first move was simple. I found a few irrefutable pieces of evidence showing Dad's involvement in some questionable business practices, enough to raise eyebrows at the SEC, or at least make a few powerful enemies nervous. Next, I reached out to people who had been quietly pushed aside by Dad's iron fist, the ones who had no reason to love me but plenty of reason to hate him. Former executives, disgruntled shareholders, and a few whistleblowers who had kept their mouths shut, until now. Lisa, my best friend, and a hacker with questionable ethics, became my partner in crime. I'm not proud of every method we used, but sometimes you have to get your hands dirty when you're trying to take down a Goliath. One evening, we sat in my tiny apartment, surrounded by stacks of files, laptops humming, coffee cooling in untouched mugs. Lisa looked up from her screen and smirked. "You sure you want to go through with this? Because once we start, there's no going back." I smiled, cold and hard. I don't want to go back. I want to go forward. And forward means taking him down. The next weeks were a whirlwind. I leaked information anonymously to the press, stirred up boardroom tension, and watched as Dad's carefully crafted reputation started to crack. The man who used to command respect with a mere glance was now dodging questions like a guilty teenager. I felt alive. More alive than I had in years, but the most satisfying part, watching Dad squirm. His public statements became defensive and desperate. He called emergency board meetings, tried to blame others, and even threatened legal action. It was like watching a cat trapped in a corner, claws out, ready to scratch anyone who came near. Yet, amidst all this chaos, I kept my identity hidden. No one suspected Sarah Miller, the fired daughter, was the mastermind behind the scenes. I was a ghost, haunting the empire that tried to erase me. But I didn't just want to destroy him. I wanted to replace him. The CEO chair wasn't just a seat, it was my birthright. So, I quietly gathered allies inside the company. Young executives tired of the old guard, employees who respected my vision over Dad's iron-fisted rule. I promised them a new era, transparency, innovation, and respect. Slowly, they started to listen. One night I received a message from a major shareholder, someone Dad had overlooked. They wanted to meet. The place, a downtown cafe, far from the glass towers of Miller Enterprises. The meeting was tense but promising. The shareholder was tired of the constant scandals and ready to back a change in leadership. They handed me a copy of the company's bylaws, showing how a vote of no confidence could force Dad out. The plan was in motion. But here's the twist. Dad isn't just a ruthless businessman. He's also my father. And family complicates everything. One afternoon, I got a call from him. His voice, usually stern, cracked just a bit. "Sarah, meet me at the office. We need to talk." I almost laughed. Talk? After everything? But I agreed. When I arrived, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dad was waiting, eyes cold but calculating. "I know what you're doing," he said. "You think you can take my company from me?" "I'm not thinking. I'm doing," I replied. "You threw me out like garbage, Dad. Now it's my turn to clean house." He smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "You've changed. Maybe you're stronger than I thought. But this war—" "I'm not here for war," I interrupted. "I'm here for justice." We stared at each other, two warriors on opposite sides, of a battlefield built with family secrets, lies, and ambition. and the war was just beginning. The day of the board meeting came faster than I expected. Months of planning, scheming, and sleepless nights boiled down to this moment. The ultimate showdown in the glass-walled conference room that had once been my battlefield and prison. I arrived early, dressed sharp, every bit the CEO I was born to be. The board members filtered in, eyes flickering with curiosity, some masked skepticism. Dad sat at the head of the table, his posture rigid, a mask of unshakable control plastered across his face. But I could see the cracks beneath. The man who dragged me out like a criminal was trembling inside. The meeting began with the usual pleasantries, but I wasn't there to chit-chat. I stood, projecting confidence like a weapon. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, voice steady, "I believe it's time we address the elephant in the room." A few heads nodded, others shifted uncomfortably. I have evidence that raises serious questions about the integrity of Miller Enterprises' leadership. Conflicts of interest, misappropriation of funds, and a culture of fear that stifled innovation and honesty. The room went silent. I slid a thick dossier across the table. "Everything you need is here. This isn't personal. It's about the future of this company, and its survival." Dad's jaw tightened. "Sarah, you're playing a dangerous game. These are baseless accusations." I met his gaze, unwavering. "You're right about one thing. It's a game, but one I intend to win." The shareholder who had backed me cleared their throat. "We've reviewed the documents. I propose we hold an immediate vote of no confidence in the current leadership." Murmurs filled the room. Dad's face turned red with fury. "You'll regret this. You don't know what you're unleashing." I smiled, cold and assured. "Oh, but I do. And I'm ready." The vote was swift. The majority sided with me. Dad's empire was crumbling. The man who had wielded power for decades was being stripped of it by his own daughter.